Welcome to Herbie at Heart, where herbalism grows in the roots of our hearts, an intrinsic journey where we dwell on the deep and expand the narrow. Starring your favorite herbalists, Tash at Avant Garden Life and Philip at Power Plants Berlin. Just as a plant grows and changes, so do we. This project is quite the journey for us. We are learning a lot about ourselves, how we work together, and how to create something that is not seen and only heard. As we all practice, they change and morph, and this is no exception. We have changed the name of our show to Herbie at Heart. We didn't feel that the modern mystic was fitting us anymore, and in our next shows we will be working with some other themes. Stay tuned.
Exactly. And this show, we're going to stick with our old routine that is basically having no routine. Yeah, the funny part is that in our last episode, we focused pretty much about routines and structure and how to build a healthy foundation, create guidelines, how to incorporate ritual into everyday life, how to connect with plants through ritual in nature. And now in this episode, we kind of want to talk about where these foundations are coming from. We want to deconstruct the rules, why we feel the need to follow certain kind of rules, and of course allowing ourselves to question them. So we will inquire on what we believe, question some systems, have a look on our own, and what was created by us or what was created by others, why we follow these kind of things, look at conditionings, and our awareness towards them. So this episode's theme is why it is important to break rules, why it is important to have rules, and how we can think outside the box in herbalism. And we're going to start this episode with a song. You want to introduce this one?
Yep, this is Baby Huey, Change is Gonna Come. Thank you, Baby Huey, with the song Change is Gonna Come. So we're just going to jump right into this theme and break some boxes. When we're talking about a subject as taboo and controversial, as something as breaking rules and deconstructing our old systems, the first thing that comes to mind for me is creating chaos, shake things up, rethink old systems. It's called revolution. I think some people are scared of revolution, of things evolving, moving with the times. And when we think of deconstructing something or changing something, it can be really, really scary. And sometimes we've got to sit with that fear and see where it comes from. Because this can help us understand why we don't want something to change. And if maybe it even does need a change, not everything does have to change all the time. I mean, I'm a massive changing of everything all the time, but that is not necessarily always a good thing. Sometimes it's good to understand that there is a system that doesn't need to be changed or broken. And that's why I think it's good to sit with it before you are going to go out and do this stuff. It's also really important to respect others which have created things before us and to just look at how they've created it, why they created it, where it stems from. So do your research if you are going to be decreating systems and breaking rules. In saying that, I am an absolute rule breaker, an anarchist, if I may call myself that. Philip is shaking his head.
It's true.
And why I am like this, I've really sat with this subject quite a lot, is I need to understand why something is why it is. And I don't think everyone questions all the time. And I think when we're talking about this subject, this is an important thing to think about. It's about the questioning of things, that we are allowed as humans to question things, and we are allowed to change. And and practice something differently than what we learned or how we learned it. And of course, this moves and flows a lot in my work, and it also flows within my work as a herbalist, within my work in the health industry. And I'm always questioning everything within my work, even myself and the way that I work, so I can develop it further. The health industry does have a lot of rules and regulations. Philip will talk about some of these. And some of them, of course, are in place to protect us, to protect other people. And some are a lot more questionable. So who decides on these and why? Why do we follow some of these more questionable systems and rules? I think these are good questions for us to be asking each other. To sit down in conversation, to sit down with your peers, to create groups where we can discuss this. We will be going more or talking more today about the health industry because that is our area. But if you're in another industry, you can also create your own ideas of what could be broken, or broken is such a terrible word, actually, of what could be reconstructed. I think that is a much more positive way of putting it. And just sit with peers and fellow people. And it's a good way to come together and start conversations around this. And you can be asking these questions. Deconstructing and reconstructing, deconditioning and reconditioning. What do these mean to you?
Yeah. The thing is, I totally agree with you on most of the stuff. Especially, I am questioning. I try to question everything I do, and mostly question the whole system all the time. So we are on the same side, and yet I will try to put in a little antithesis. So this. You have an antagonist in this conversation here, and it's not going to be like.
This is why we're here.
Yeah. And especially for people who, like us, who are questioning themselves, can be from self-doubt, but also from like criticizing your own work and by trying to grow in your work, right? It's important, I think, to look at the other side and to look at the other idea of why you should stick to certain rules. And I would like to quote my former Qigong master, he's still my master, Qigong master Lao Ma, who what he taught me is that it's interesting to break rules and create new Qigong, Tai Chi. It's about martial arts or kung fu, but in general, I think this theme goes for everything and every genre that we are working in. You can recreate something only by mastering it in the beginning. That's not really a point in recreating traditional Chinese medicine when you have not studied the basics. And these are basics that have a foundation of thousands of years. And you can create your own versions and your own work and your own medicine and these kind of things. But there's some basics that needs to be covered. And I think that's the important part, that only by mastering the basics, you kind of are allowed to go forward. Of course, you can do whatever you want, but I think we will lack a certain understanding if we not follow some of the rules. So in my opinion, it's important to follow them for a certain time frame, for a certain amount of time, to master the anatomy, the pathology, master the philosophy of the art, and only then create new ways to get out of there. And while doing this, then we have the possibility to approach it from a new perspective. Otherwise, there's missing one part of the reality, and that can be very dangerous. And we are herbalists. Also, we studied homeopathy, and sometimes, especially these days, where the attention span of the usual suspects out there is very short, including myself. I'm a YouTube addict, so I have my attention span issues. We want to have easy solutions. We want to have an easy answer to something. It's the pharma industry or the industry gives us a pill for a headache, that's an easy solution and it works. But it doesn't get the disease by the root, like where is the headache coming from? Why is it why is it coming in certain situations? That are the questions that are interesting to me, to us as a holistic practitioner. And if we neglect these kind of topics, we won't really find the solution, only short-term solution, but not any kind of deep healing. And since this attention span is so short and we're looking for these short-term solutions, the more important it is to follow the basics, to work on the basics and to actually study a certain art, because our body is a very complex, it's not a machine, what do you call it? System, yeah. It's a very complex system. Everything is like intertwined. There are mechanics that we need to understand, connections that we need to understand, and just one thing is not gonna cover it for all. One plant may help you with a certain kind of disease or dis-ease or pain, but for the other person it's not really working. So in order to understand and fully understand the teachings and the system, you need to study for a certain kind of time and get your experience, and not just follow Instagram advice.
I think Philip has a very good point there, and that's why we are trained. That's why there exists people trained specifically in the area, such as us as herbalists, homeopathics. We are trained in this area, and I think it's a very good point that he's saying about also coming to see people like us, because we are trained in this area. And once you are trained in an area and you've been working a long time in an area, I think experimentation is a beautiful thing. And in our next shows, as we develop more, we're developing some new ideas, which we'll share with you in them. But being able to experiment with the things that are presently there is wonderful and beautiful, and new things can come out of it. And I think when we look at the health industry, there, with all the rules and regulations and with some of the questionable ones, when you are within the industry and you're highly educated within your field, then you can understand why you can question these things and why you can deconstruct, and not always reconstructing them. Sometimes it is just dissecting something and looking at it from a different angle, I think. And you can, how it's like if we look at when Chinese medicine was developed, or how herbs were developed, there were people or there were ways that they developed that. And I think that's a very important thing to understand, that it just didn't come from anywhere. It didn't fall from the sky. Like people, or they worked with nature much more deeply and they developed these things. And so why is it that we can't move them further? I wouldn't even say to like completely break them apart. I would just say, why can't we take them to the next level and work with them in a more modern way? Also our illnesses have changed. We have things that for 1,000, 2,000 years ago we didn't have. When Chinese medicine was developed, we didn't have computers, we didn't have phones, we didn't have high anxiety. People weren't living alone. People were moving a lot more. There's all these illnesses and ailments that we have now, which we didn't have. And I think it is almost silly is not the right word. The word's not coming to me, but it's also almost irresponsible not to develop our ways to help the people go further. I think we need to rethink this. And that's why in the beginning, I wanted to mention that it is such a taboo and controversial subject, because people don't want to change. And a lot of these systems are so hard, they're so held tightly, because people, I don't know, they're scared of change, the fear that their ideas will disappear. And it's not about that. It's about allowing like new and younger generations to come up and to work and to experiment.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. And one thing that comes to my mind is this idea of we are we have this kind of idea stuck in our head that if we are studying something, it's not really a good thing, like you're not an expert yet, you are in university or wherever, or you can be like 50 and still studying. But there's like this approach in our society, once you study something and you don't really work with it as a professional, you are seen as you're not like a fully part of the society. And that is a very dangerous approach, I think, because you want to simplify things that are not to be simplified in certain situations. I met this shaman from Nepal a few months ago, and he studied for 30 years with one person until he started working as a shaman. And that's incredible. And when they spoke to us, and they're like, yeah, see it as a present, as a gift to us that you have the ability to study. It doesn't mean that you're not an expert yet, but sometimes you need to have a deep understanding about some things to develop further. And now he has his role and like he does his stuff. But for us, I think it's important to always keep on questioning things, to inquire things, to be how do you say neugierig?
Yes, the word starts coming to me.
Okay, to
inquisitive. To be inquisitive,
to always look for new things, and don't feel bad if you don't understand something. Like, go deeper and try to experience it. And I think this is something that our society, some of it is kind of losing. Everything needs to happen really fast and quickly, and we have, and I don't think this is how we get further, like it pushes us back a little bit.
You're right, it's a good point, because nowadays when you study, it's people have 2 years, and in some areas, or 3 years, and for 100 years, you might have done that for 10, 15 years. Yeah, it's a good point. And to actually, with this idea of being an expert, it's always good to come back to yourself and sit back and almost perhaps bring your inner child in there and play again and learn, because no one, in my opinion, is an expert. It does not exist. I personally, with this idea of experts, everyone is always learning all the time. And I think you can have a lot of knowledge about something, and you can have a lot more knowledge than perhaps I do about something. But it is so humbling to sit in a spot where you're learning and you're moving and you're changing your ideas, or at least being open to the ideas of things changing.
Yeah, I think that's the point. You're closing a room or a space when for example, I talk to a patient and I already know what's happening inside of him, or I pretend to know. Like, how does he have a chance to express himself? It's my job to be curious, to hold the space for him to express himself, and I can see what is really there. And I think that's an important thing, that we learn to open these spaces. But I think we are kind of moving along from the topic of the...
We are.
Yes, we are.
As we do.
So what I researched, or I wanted to introduce here, is to talk a little bit in our field of herbalism, who creates these kind of rules. Tash already talked a little bit about like how ancient rules are applied, where they're coming from, and how we need to develop them, because there's new diseases and everything. And of course, we have a Western tradition of herbal medicine that is very old and very strong. And in Europe, there's a really big tradition, not just here in Western, but also Eastern Europe. People still work a lot with herbs, herbal medicine, and traditional medicine. And in Germany especially, we have this job called Heilprakterin, which is a very unique profession here in Europe, because we have a lot of rights on things we are allowed to treat, and specific things we are not allowed to treat, like infectious diseases. And in the end of the 70s, the Federal Institute for Drugs and Medical Devices, call it BFRM in Germany, doesn't really matter. They created this kind of board. It's a commission. It's called Commission E, and there's also Commission D and C and B and so on. The D commission is for homeopathic remedies, and the Commission E that we're talking about now is for evaluation, the safety and efficiency and quality of herbal medicine. So what they're doing is they're taking old herbs that we're using in traditional medicine for a long time, and they evaluate them with scientific methods. So there's people, scientists, who doing studies, clinical trials, on reviewing existing research, also traditional use of the plants, and they write what we call a monography. So that is a extensive description of a plant, how it grows, how it is used, what's the insights, what you call it? Yes.
Constitute.
Yeah.
The chemical compounds in it.
Thank you. What is the chemical compounds in them, and how it should be used. And then they are creating monographs that they call positive, neutral, or negative monographs. So if a plant is viewed with a positive monograph, there's an actual medical use towards the plant. That means for us as a healing practitioner, I am allowed to use that plant and order it from a pharmacy. So a pharmacy is allowed to use that plant and order that plant, work with that plant, sell that plant as a medical compound.
Can a practitioner only use it?
No, everybody's allowed to use it. But if there's, for example, if there's a negative monography on a plant that has been used for a long time, pharmacies are not allowed to sell them anymore. And there's certain examples. One is, I think it's called burdock in English, right? Isn't it? No, comfrey.
Comfrey, yeah.
Comfrey. Burdock is something else. Yeah, comfrey. The Symphytum officinale, or there's also kava that they have been used for a very long time in traditional medicine. With great success, actually, like super powerful, very, very efficient plants. But new research, or like as our science grows and the chemical science grows, we of course are able to isolate certain ingredients of the plants, for example, alkaloids, and finding out that some of the plants have poisonous parts inside. With the comfrey, that's the example of the pyrrolizidine alkaloids. And if you isolate them, and in experiments with rats for a longer time and a certain amount of this alkaloid, it was toxic for their liver. And of course, we try to avoid to use these kind of plants. And in general, I think the Commission E is a very good thing, because it gives us the legal possibility to work as a herbalist with certain pharmacies, and pharmacies have the possibility to actually get high quality herbs. And I think that's the super important part, that there's a system that regulates the quality of herbs and how we can use them. And this gives us the chance to actually get high quality herbs that we can treat people with. The negative part I don't really like about is that some of the plants that has been used for like thousands of years actually are not allowed, or some of them we cannot use anymore because of a negative monography. For example, this comfrey example, or kava. And of course, there's the scientific evidence, and yet I believe if you take comfrey for several months in a several amount, you will insert this kind of alkaloid, and that's toxic for your liver. At the same time, if you drink peppermint tea for 3 months in a row, you will have problems in your stomach. So it's always about the amount that makes the poison. I think that's how
dosage. I think
the
dosage
makes
the poison.
Exactly. Yeah. And as a practitioner, that's our job, to be informed about these things. And at the same time, it's sad because certain plants that have powerful ingredients and healing abilities we cannot use anymore. But that's how it is. So we find our ways around it and use different plants, and we get in contact with other plants, which is also very fun, I think.
I mean, I can agree with you with it's important to be looking at these plants, and that to have a board, I don't know if I'm so on board with that board. because it's an interesting thought to who's on that board, who makes these decisions, how many natural therapists are on this board, how many doctors, how many people in the pharmaceutical industry, who pays for this, who pays for the testings. And a little bit the issue what we have is they don't give enough money to test herbs, yet they want all the herbs to be tested. And but they're giving all this money to have drug testing. And when you look at the issues with the herbs that they're taking away, they're often, like Philip said, you have to take generally large amounts for long periods of time. And even then, it's not always the case with some of the herbs. I'm not saying with all, but with some of them that it's almost impossible, or you'd almost make yourself so sick just from ingesting that much herb. So I'm always a little bit funny with some of these boards and commissions, and I see the positive there, but I also see a lot of negatives. And especially when we look at some pharmaceutical drugs like aspirin, which you can get anywhere, and is causing so many health issues, yet they're not taking that off the shelves. So just to look at both sides, I think it's important. And yes, it's exactly why we're here, is because we always have to look up these commissions, and new herbs are always being taken off the shelves.
Just one thing, it is open knowledge who is sitting on that board. So you can always look up the people who are like toxicologists, mostly not healing practitioners, actually, because I mean it's kind of a work, and I don't think it's quite an easy job that a lot of people want to do. So most of them are scientists or professors for botany or like biology.
Yeah.
And some of them are doctors. Yeah, but most of them are scientists.
Yeah, I mean, I guess not many people want to do that job. I guess a lot of, like, as a herbalist, I'd rather be in the forest collecting the herbs than
exactly, and it's political
sitting.
work.
And it is, yes, you're right. Yeah. It's a political situation.
So thank you for everybody that has the right mind in doing that.
Yeah, and thank you for all the people that are sticking up for the herbs.
Yes.
Yeah, do you have anything that you wanted to say still about the say noch? Yeah. That's our Jinglish that sometimes comes through our radio.
I mean, no, I think we have elaborated on that one.
Yeah, I think you explained that really well for all the people out there that didn't know about the Commission E. We are also regulated as herbalists with things that we can use and cannot used, and of course we're always getting angry because things are getting taken off, which in our eyes have been used for thousands and hundreds of thousands of years and they've done a lot more good than they've done any damage. And it is really sad to see some of these herbs go off our lists. But we're anarchists and we're fighters, and we then look for new herbs that we can use. There's so many great ones out there.
Yeah. Or if you want to treat yourself, which is always an option, if you have the experience and the knowledge about the plants that you're using and how to use them. Of course, everybody's allowed to make their own tinctures. So it's not a thing. Nobody will forbid you to do that.
Yeah, that's right.
Except some psychoactive plants, maybe.
Yeah, maybe make sure you're 100%. And if you're wanting to learn about that, I do herbalism courses, and if you're interested in homeopathy, Philip also does. He's actually got a great course at the moment. Did you want to tell the audience a little bit about that?
That you're
offering.
We start homeopathy teachings for parents and people out there who want to get through the winter healthy, and it's just the basic knowledge of how to use homeopathy. We will provide everything in the show notes. It's called Homöopathie im Baum in Schöneberg, and we're having some courses there.
Yeah, so you can look up Philip also on Instagram. We will have it in the show notes, as he said, but you can look him up on Instagram at Power Plants Berlin. And if you're interested in any of my workshops, they are around herbalism and food as medicine. You can look me up at Avant Garden Life. That's also my website. Philip's website is, I said it wrong last time.
Yeah, no worry. hp-filius.de. But I think if you're tuning into this show right now, you will find all our information.
All our information in the notes. And yeah, I think
let's play another song, I think.
Yeah.
We talked so long now. I think
exactly.
It's time for some music.
The audience is...
Okay. The classic. We're going to play some Queen.
Oh, yeah.
That was Queen, of course, with I Want to Break Free. Breaking free from structures and rules. Who did that better than Freddie? We want to introduce to you another rule breaker out there that we are having the pleasure to chat with today. Her name is Cornelia Titzmann, who is a talented herbalist and a naturopath, a Heilprakterin, also a homeopath. She does horse therapy, mistletoe therapy, traditional European medicine, and was born and bred in Berlin. She was working, I think she's working now more than 40 years in this field, so she's really an expert. And one of our teachers at the moment, she loves everything that has to do with plants. She's a herbie at heart. Has a deep connection with plants and the nature all around her. So we are chatting with her about the industry and how it's changing, and here she comes. So, hello, Cornelia. Great to have you here. So we want to start with our first question, and that is, who are you and what is it that you're doing?
It's a good question. Who are you, huh? Okay. I'm Cornelia. That's my name. And I'm naturopath, alternative practicing, whatever you call it. We call it Heilprakterin in German. And it's a profession that exists only really here in this freedom that we have in therapies. And I'm a mother, now a grandmother, and I work with plants. This is really my passion. This is I don't know how you really can describe it. It's a part of my life, working with phytotherapy and also being outside in nature. I need this. I love this. I always have been with horses and with other animals too. And I'm still ruling in this, working in this, and I always have been a rule breaker all my life. I've been always a little bit outside of other themes and whatever you call it. And that's it. That's me.
So you are a rule breaker. How are you breaking the rules boundaries within your work?
Okay. So of course I'm also inside the rules, because if I work professionally, I have a studio and I have patients and I have to obey certain rules. And I do this also with pleasure because I think it's okay. But between that, I've been working now almost 40 years and rules have been changing. They changed. And so I have used certain plants, for instance, in my recipes, which I cannot use anymore because they're forbidden because of point. They're dangerous or they're not available, or some people think that's there are different reasons because they're not available anymore. So, and I started, you have to choose other plants and have to look how you can, get them maybe from other countries, or you have to use other ways. And I always like this. It's like a little bit of anarchy kind of life. Yeah. And so I started also to read old scriptures from hundreds of years ago, how they used this. And this also made me very proud to be in this line of old healers. And so like there are two things I can do in my private work or in my private interest. I can do whatever I want. This I love. So also with my students and for me, for myself, I go and still collect these plants which are forbidden, and I try them on myself, on friends, on families. They are always good. And so I can still see how they are working and things like this. And it's also by rule forbidden to make my own ointments or tinctures, or I can. This is also, you have to go to the pharmacy and do this. Or work together with the pharmacy, and I do this for myself, of course. So I like to try how the difference is between the things I buy and the things I do for myself.
Okay, so according to German law, it's allowed, or I am allowed to make my own herbal medicine and use it for myself, but I cannot use it or give it to patients.
Yeah. Or if you're a professional, if not, you can do whatever you want. And the line is open. It opens sometimes. Yeah. Who is a friend and who is a patient?
Okay.
Okay, so how has your work changed in terms of our theme of today, rule breaking? Or how did rules which were applied later in your field change the way you worked or working now?
Yeah, it's good because I don't obey the rules, so it doesn't change. No, it has been changing a little bit, of course, but not so hard for me, because I always found ways to go underneath and beside and so on. But sometimes it makes me angry that there are rules which are, things that have been used for years, and they really were very good for my patients and for myself and for whomever, and now I can't do it anymore. So, and it's also a loss of traditional using, like these plants have been healing plants for thousands of years, and now somebody comes and says, no, this is absurd.
Can you name an example?
For instance, this Symphytum, it's called, or Consolida, and
that's
comfrey. And so they said, okay, this has too much of these pyrrolizidine alkaloids, and of course they do have them, but it's always a question of the amount you're using. So it has been a healing plant for thousands of years. Now it's forbidden. I mean, this is so. Okay, I understand sometimes how these rules have been developed, but for me as a professional, it's stupid because I know how to use it.
I think the audience would be interested to hear now who creates these rules.
There are different groups of Gramians and stuff, and in Europe especially, that they come together. They are like from the pharmacy industry, and this is also a point now. Of course, they are more interested in making money than in really, still having this traditional plants, because they don't, nobody really makes money with that. So it's not really the biggest interest. So these are there, and some doctors, some scientists, and so they come all together and they fix that out. And these groups sometimes change, and they have been. There was in the 70s and 80s a man called Joseph Karl, and he was also an alternative practitioner, and he was always who always fought for these plants, but he was 1 in 100, and it was so tiring for him also that after some years he quit because it was really hard work. Yeah.
Moving on from that question, when it comes to men within the world of herbalism, so when we look back in history, for example, Herbalist's book are mainly written by men, even though it was often and originally a woman's art. What is your stance on that? How do you view that this field, that this art was taken over by men?
It's interesting because it's not only in herbal medicine; it's in all kinds of that the only men have written it, but very often it was developed by women and whatever. And I think the women have been always the greater amount also, or there were more women who had this wisdom about healing plants, but they weren't in this scientific area, so sometimes they even couldn't write. So it was also always on the male side, and it was also a change because they wrote in a male vision, so they didn't really wrote this down what the women said or made, so that it was their mind, which was in the book. So it's very difficult to say. And now it has been changed a little bit. There are more women, but sometimes these women who are working in the scientific kind of way, they're sometimes even stronger than men, because sometimes I think they want to stand their man as a woman. And this is very strange. And these which are really going in a different way, more spiritual. So you don't find them really in books, or, they're not so obvious. It's changing a little bit through this internet stuff, but it's still a different kind of vision. But it's interesting because now, at least in Europe, more women are also studying like medicine, also traditional medicine, but also alternative things. So all these social working, I call it social work, there are more women now. So I hope maybe it's a little bit changing. But I don't think whether it's really agenda stuff, no? But because I think it depends really on the person. But in history, it has been very brutal because at least through the church area, a Catholic church, they have been, burned so many, so-called witches, and so it was a great loss of wisdom also what we have through that.
While we're on the subject of gender, I would love to ask you what your thoughts are regarding gender norms, gender orientation, and how has your work evolved within your field?
It's an interesting question, because I think I have never looked really so gender specific in my life. For me, it was never important if somebody was a woman or a man, or not a woman or not a woman. It never interested me really. So I grew up in a very conservative family, but even that point was never a subject to look on. So this made me very free. And I don't know whether really it changes something. We will see that maybe in 20 or 30 or 40 years. And for me, it's all more like now it's a time where everything is not so fixed. So it's like the people go out of religion, they go out of their gender, they go out of certain relationships. You don't marry someone and stay with him as 50 years. So everything has changed, and we have to find our own ways. And this is very, very difficult. Yeah. So we will see how it's developing. But I'm fine with this. I feel very free and very. So, I sometimes really don't care about all these rules. I do what I think it's the best.
Okay, at the same time, you're a teacher for phytotherapy at the Samuel Hahnemann Schule here in Berlin, and you need to teach your students a certain kind of rule set, basic rules. So how do you get along with that?
Oh, perfectly. I get along with it perfectly. I tell them the rules, and I tell them how to break the rules. This is really nice because everybody can do what they want. They have to know the rules, at least when they're making their exam. But what they do afterwards with this is their responsibility. I mean, rules are also there to provide damage. Let's say it like this, yeah? But it's your turn if you're working to prevent damage on people. So if there's a rule or not, certain things you shouldn't do and other things you should do. If there's a rule not safe drowning children from water, you wouldn't obey that rule. And if there's a rule to do something stupid, you don't obey it because, you always decide every day, every month, every year. It's your turn and your responsibility.
So we have one last question. Is there something you want to share with our audience as a rule breaker?
As a rule breaker, I would say follow your heart. This is really very important, and work only with this you really like to, and burn for it, and you go into it, and also keep on learning. This is also important. And even now, I'm doing this, like I said, almost 40 years. I'm still learning. So, and I'm still curious about new things. And I also listen to other people. This is also very important. Also to other opinions. So I can always think about my standing. Yeah, life is beautiful, especially with plants.
It sure is. Thank you, Connie. Last thing, you want to play a song for us?
Oh, I'm a fan of Janis Joplin all my life. And I like to hear me and Bobby McGee. This is also a love song, and it's also a song about losing someone and finding yourself.
Thank you, Janice. Let's go. Okay, now we have recipe time. Recipe time. Okay, we're going to talk about today local bitters. For all you people out there, all you lovely humans, local bitters or bitters is tonic of sorts. It's always made with tincture with tincture. It's always made with alcohol generally, and about 40%. And bitters stimulate our digestion, but what they also do is they ground us so we have the courage to break out and live our best life. Generally in the bitters, you'll have 3 different layers. Today, we're just going to quickly talk about the actual bitter layer, which we use a lot of roots and, of course, bitter plants. So this recipe will go on Instagram, and then you can look at the full recipe. I would just talk a little bit about it. We don't have so much more time. So here I've done a list. Now you can use whatever you can find. That's why it's called local bitters. We'll start with the dandelion root. Super easy to find. You can find it everywhere. Dandelion, ask your neighbors if you've got a garden, if you live outside of Berlin, or if you live somewhere else in the world, either in your garden, neighbor's garden, grandmother's garden, and just make sure they're not spraying. Collect it, generally the best in spring and autumn. Gather the roots. You can also use the leaves, but the roots is what we want in this mix. Burdoc's another great one, which grows a lot here. I'm from Australia. In Australia, not as much all over, but in Europe, you'll find it a lot. Angelica root. Oh, it's a hard one, that one. But this is also one that grows a lot around Berlin. You could use artichoke leaf, mugwort leaf, Oregon grape root, which is also another one which grows a lot around here. Oregon grape, you do have to be a little bit careful with. It's a little bit toxic at it's more toxic at higher levels. So if you're a beginner, maybe stick with the dandelion and the burdock and throw some artichoke and some mugwort in there. Basically, you place all the ingredients into a jar, 3/4 full, fill it with alcohol. Bob's your uncle. Put a lid on it. Leave it with roots. I would always leave it for maybe 2 months just because they're a bit of a more harder substance. You could do it for just 1 moon cycle. Empty it, and there's your little bit of tonic. And you can add that to things. You can take it just by itself, or you can add it, which we will have another recipe online, a old-fashioned.
Is that funny with routine? That's my
routine
recipe.
with deconstructing.
Deconstructing, yeah.
We thought that was funny. So it does have a bit of bitters in it. Which bitters?
Angostura normally, yeah.
That's the traditional. So we just wanted to give you a local bitters that you could make that to add a little twist to it. So you can make a nice cocktail, or you can take it, drop a dose.
Yeah. That's it for this month. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening to Herbie at Heart.
Herbie at heart, Herbie by nature.
See you next month. Bye.
Bye.